Well, welcome to my debatable conclusion. How's that for the nugget start? I really had a hard time creating this little concluding nugget. Usually at the end of every series, I create just like a hey, good luck. Here's what to do next. Here's how to study for your certification exam. All those kind of tips I put into one place. And I thought, well, how do I wrap this guy up? Because you've at this point in the series you've seen what an animal AWS is, not just how much is available, but how fast it's changing. I mean, if you're signed up for the AWS newsletter, every single month something new is coming out, an interface change. I mean, from the beginning of the series till now, things have changed even in the interfaces that we were using in the series. It's that fast. So I was debating because I thought, well, do I conclude it? Or does this become a living, breathing series where as new things are being developed, we're just adding nuggets to the end of the series? So I'm not too sure. I mean, you may never hear this nugget by time it's said and done. We may just remove it completely because it may be that living, breathing series. Or maybe we start creating more AWS series like Advanced Administration or AWS Developer or AWS Database. I mean, you know how big AWS is now. So very easily there would be the opportunity to create all of those different series. So for now, hang with me. What I'd like to do is just wrap up what you know at this point and then talk about where to go from here. So, the series is called AWS Foundations, which focuses on the core administration, which is, number one, the cloud. We saw how this changes everything, how we're now developing systems in the cloud, in the data centers, off-site, off-premise. And as the bandwidth continues to increase, I mean, good grief, I just got a letter in the mail yesterday from CenturyLink, who's my internet provider for my house. They go, oh yeah, for $10 more a month, you can now get an 80 meg down, like 20 meg up internet circuit at your house. Initially, I was like, well, how can they offer that for that price? And then I thought about it. They go, well, of course, to the homes. When is a home user going to use 80 megs down? I mean, if they are actually using that, how are they doing that? What are they doing at their house? So of course they're like, hey, yeah, for $10, feel free to grab more bandwidth that you'll never use. But the point is that our bandwidth is increasing all over the place to where it starts to become feasible, really does, to start running everything off-site, to where you can have centralized services, where you get all those benefits from a cost perspective. You don't have to have separate backup systems and separate, everything at each location. We looked at EC2, which is the core of everything AWS. This is where you generate your server instances. You have your AMIs, your essentially stored hard disks, if you will, for your instances, and you generate instances from them. We looked at the management of those, the security of those. How do you generate the PKI keys for those guys, the addressing for them. We looked at elastic IP addresses versus the dynamically generated addresses. We looked at the load balancing, where we could set up just a quick load balance cluster between all of these guys. We then moved into VPC, virtual private. Oh no, I've done it again. Okay, it's virtual private cloud. I had to pause and look back. VPC just stands for so many different things. I always flip cloud and computing and everything in there. To where you get complete control of your network. You get to create your own subnets. You get to create your own access lists, your own security groups that deny inbound and outbound. We went through a lot with VPC, and networking is my passion. So that's a fun one for me. So VPC. Anything more on that? Yeah, no. Network control. Oh, that's what I was thinking. I was just thinking with VPC, with great power comes great responsibility. There's a lot more to VPC. It doesn't just automatically happen a lot of times. You've got to map elastic IP addresses manually for each publicly accessible server. Just set up those security groups. There's just a lot to VPC and a lot to managing it. We then moved into S3, which is your storage buckets, to where you can really store anything and everything with unlimited restrictions other than your pocketbook in Amazon AWS for access. And we looked at managing those buckets, using those buckets to publish websites. You can use those really well for publishing static content like image libraries and static websites that aren't changing. We then moved into the DNS, Route 53. Using Amazon for your DNS has a ton of huge advantages. That's the justification for it. Being distributed DNS worldwide, because DNS is often overlooked. If you've got slow DNS, it doesn't matter how fast your website is because it's always going to feel slow to the person. It's just kind of hanging there waiting for that name to IP address resolution, and AWS takes care of all that. So we looked at the justification for it, and then really simply using it. It's not too difficult. It's a very simple management console that's very clean to work with. The last thing that we put into the series for now was IAM, which allows you to manage your user accounts. Identity and access management, giving you the ability to go in and set up users with limited privileges or set up service accounts for your different roles that you can assign to servers so that they are able to access different things. Again, I always think, doing this kind of conclusion is like a yearbook for me where I'm like, oh yeah, remember when, and I just think, oh man, remember when we set up the one-time use passwords, the I'm trying to remember the multi-factor authentication, to where you can put an iPhone or Android phone app on there to generate those one-time use passwords and go from there. So again, a lot of power with IAM. Okay, last thought is, where do I go from here? I mean, are there any Amazon AWS certifications, or where do I take this? Well, currently, and this is why this series is a little unique from everything that at least I've personally done with CBT Nuggets. There are no certifications for this, which makes it a little ambiguous as to what should be included here. I mean, what we looked at as CBT Nuggets is, okay, CBT Nuggets uses AWS for everything, so what do we consider, along with some outside advisory, to be core administration? What are the key topics that people would want to know about? Now, Amazon, I'm sure, will eventually create a certification program on AWS. Maybe they even base it on this series. They say, hey, maybe entry-level certification will be this CBT Nugget series, and they'll develop test questions from it and books and all that kind of stuff. Who knows? But so there is no certification program. So where you go from here is really dependent on what you are using or want to use AWS for. I'd say if you already have AWS, it's a really good idea to start looking at your current infrastructure, and now you have an idea of how everything at AWS works, so you can look at it and say, oh, okay, now I see how we have that, or now we've enhanced your knowledge to where you're like, oh, now I really want to design it this way, or use a different approach, or now you see what I mean? You can really enhance what you're doing. Or if you're not using AWS, start, I would say, on a personal level, just start a blog or something simple for free on AWS. Maybe you pay them a buck a month as like a gratuity. Start your own little micro instance server, or just use a free S3 bucket, and use Route 53 for DNS and contribute $1 a month to AWS systems. Who knows? So maybe start there, or you'll be at your company, and I guarantee you'll look around at your company and say, we can do things better. Hey, we have our Microsoft Exchange server running here. Why don't we move that to AWS? And I know half of you are like, oh, and just passed out right there. I mean, why not move your Exchange server to a quasi-privately hosted environment by moving it up to AWS? Or maybe you run your web servers locally. I mean, there's a million. Or you'll be in a boardroom meeting and they're like, oh, well, how do we do this? And I mean, that's where you got to speak up and be like, oh, totally, we could do this for pennies a month, or maybe $50 a month, or whatever, using AWS. This would totally be a way we want to go without building our own infrastructure bigger and bigger and bigger. The key is you now know what you know. Before, without knowing AWS, people would have these conversations and be like, well, I guess we do it this way and this way, because that's just how people have done it in the past. So now you have the knowledge. Now you can be the hero of the day, come in there and be like, oh, totally, we can do this without getting our own data center. Why don't we use this and the other, and it'll be even better, be more redundant and all that. So the sky's the limit. All right, so with all that being said, good luck to you in everything AWS. I hope this has all been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.